Harvey, 911, what is your emergency?
My dad shot me 50,000 dying.
What's going on, man?
I'm dying, that's what's up.
Okay, let me transfer you. I'm gonna get fire department online, okay? Hold on one sec, okay? What?
Oh my God.
Irving Fire Department. Irving Fire Department.
Ma'am, are you still there? Ma'am, are you still there? All I've got is she's telling me she's dying. I've got a, why are you still there, ma'am? Ma'am, what is your address? Ma'am.
Hello. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a case that involves honor killings. And I just want to say at the very start of this that this has absolutely no bearing on the Islamic faith or on Muslims whatsoever. It's not condoned in any way, shape or form. It also involves the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. So stay tuned. Amina Saeed was born in 1989. Her sister Sarah Saeed was born in 1990. So the girls were both really close in age. Which meant that they actually had a really close relationship. They were more like best friends as well as sisters. They also had a brother who was born in 1988. So he was actually, they were both basically 1 year after each other, except the girls had a much more kind of closer relationship, especially as they grew older compared to the relationship they had with the brother. There was a lot of reasons for this, but I'll get into that in a little bit later. Yasser Saeed was the dad's name, and the mum's name was Patricia Saeed. Sometimes her friends or family would call her Tizzy as a nickname. They got married when she was very young, and Yasser was a lot older than her. So that's a little bit weird. He basically came over from Egypt in about 1987 on a student visa. And that's where he met Patricia. And then they ended up getting married. However, he was 30 and she was 15. So he was double his age. He had asked her father for her hand in marriage, if it was okay. And her father agreed, which is also kind of weird. But anyway, so that happened. Then they got married. And initially, Patricia would say that the marriage, it was good initially. Yasser had promised that he would treat her really well, he'd get her what she needed, keep her safe, put a roof over her head, basically. And that was all fine, but Patricia had said that within about 6 months, things started to go kind of downhill. But, I mean, what can you expect if a 15-year-old is with a 30-year-old?
Yasser was revealing himself to be a tyrant.
He just started wanting to have more control, did not want me to have anything to do with my family, those Americans, and the Americans wasn't very good.
So Patricia went on to say that he was abusive in their marriage, right from more or less the start, really. But she would kind of hold fast throughout this whole story, and you'll see what I mean quite shortly. She kind of held on to the belief that he was only ever abusive to her, never to any of the children, specifically the 2 girls. So just remember that. Now, Patricia's character, it's a bit dodgy. So she's been caught out in lots of lies.
Why the fuck you lying?
And kind of weird lies, why is she lying about something really trivial? And then she lies about things that are really substantial as well. So to me, I don't know, it seems like that she's possibly like a pathological liar. Yeah, it's a bit worrying considering the things that she was lying about and who she was lying to protect. And then Yasser's character, he was very dominant, very controlling. He didn't want the girls to basically go anywhere where he didn't know where they were at, what they were doing, who they were with, who they were talking to. He had to know everything. And if he didn't know, you know, he would find out. He'd find a way to know. So super dominating, super controlling, coercive, everything you name it, he was it. So he basically made their lives a living hell, the two girls. They couldn't do anything, they couldn't go anywhere. And he would notably treat his son, the girls' brothers, Islam was his name. He would treat him very differently. So he was given a lot of freedom, you know, and he wasn't followed around by Yasser, whereas the girls were. So he kind of had different standards for the girls versus the boys. He would also do some strange things to the girls, like wake them up in the middle of the night whilst recording them and, you know, pulling their blankets off their bed and making weird, like sexual, you know, kind of sexual remarks or like sexually suggestive. Oh, it's just, ugh. I'll play the clip, but it creeps me out.
Nice legs. I got this. Take this blanket from this one in the back.
No!
Go.
No! Get away! No! This is illegal. Do I videotape you when you're sleeping?
Hey, get Sarah.
These are videos that have rarely been seen.
Wow, look at these eyes. I put my eye on you.
I'm gonna get sick now.
This is Yasser Saeed
Okay, turn it off, Dad.
with his teenage daughters Amina and Sarah.
Now the girls' characters, they were lovely. They were really, really nice girls. They were really sweet, quite gentle, you know, empathetic. They were caring. They just wanted to be teenagers. They, you know, they were just nice kids. Did well at school. Yeah, just they wouldn't have hurt a fly, you know. They just wanted to be happy. Literally, that was it. So something happened that triggered Yasser. So Amina and Sarah had a couple of things that they were allowed to do, but they would be heavily watched. So Sarah was allowed to have a job, but her dad would frequently wait outside the shop that she worked in his car to watch her through the window to make sure she wasn't, you know, being overly happy or overly smiley to customers, which is kind of what you have to do. But that just goes to show the level of his, I guess, insanity, that he would control them in that way.
And he recorded their every move.
Here, he's keeping an eerie watch on Sarah at work.
She smiled to the customer.
Bubba, she has to. Part of her job.
She's in trouble.
One of the things that Amina was allowed to do was to go to Taekwondo classes. And of course, her dad, you know, would be checking in on her, checking anything to do related to Taekwondo, texts, messages, emails, all the rest of it. But she met a boy there and she fell in love. His name was Joseph, and he genuinely seems like a really, really nice kid. He seems like he was besotted with her and she with him. So they found a way to communicate. So they would often text, you know, code words to each other, and they kind of have their own like secret language almost, in a way that they could communicate. So if Yasser ever found her phone, it you know, it looked innocent, or it looked like she was just talking to one of her girlfriends and not an actual boyfriend. So it wasn't long before, of course, the two started dating, but not in the original sense, obviously, because she wouldn't be allowed to go anywhere on dates. But they were official, you know, via the text, and I guess they'd only really get to see each other in Taekwondo classes. But they made it work, and they were madly in love.
It was more than just puppy love.
We both felt like what we had was very real, and it was very, very much worth fighting for.
Amina Saeed and Joseph Moreno were like Romeo and Juliet. Joseph and Amina had fallen in love at first sight when they were both young teenagers in the same martial arts class.
She walked in, and I was like, oh, man, who is that girl? And I was immediately attracted to her.
Amina felt the same attraction.
I would describe it as your stereotypical young teenage love. They were together almost every day of the week.
It didn't take much time for us to start a relationship, a serious relationship. And went from, hey, I like you, to I love you.
The young lovers would be bound at the heart for 4 years.
We were really in love with each other.
Enter Yasser. So he finds a note in Amina's school bag. So her and Joseph used to often send each other love letters, basically. But he found one.
We used to write like little love notes to each other pretty much every day. When we would come to class, we would just trade notes with each other, you know. During the day at school or whatever, we would just write whatever we thought, and it became like a daily thing.
And Amina was able to kind of lie enough to have him think that it was an imaginary letter to an imaginary boyfriend. So Yasser was kind of half convinced of this. He was still quite suspicious. So since he's such a controlling person, he then uprooted the entire family 20 miles away, moved house because of what he found, which is absolutely insane. And again, just goes to show the level of his controlling, coercive behavior, right?
Amina and Joseph had to keep their romance secret from her father, Yasser, who had forbidden both his daughters from having American boyfriends.
And she started telling me, just little by little, that it was more than just him being protective. It was more him being controlling and abusive.
Joseph felt her pain.
I wanted to get her away from that so bad. She was such a good person. She didn't deserve to live like that.
The two could never be seen together.
Joseph's mom, she's actually seems like such a sweet, sweet lady. So she knew basically everything that was going on. She knew that her son Joseph was with Amina.
Joseph's mother, Ruth Trotter, fully approved of Amina.
First of all, she was strikingly beautiful. She had these amazing, beautiful green eyes and a smile. I mean, to know her was just to fall in love with her.
She knew that Amina's father was extremely controlling and seemed like a dangerous man. So Amina had told Joseph on more than one occasion that she was actually afraid her father would kill her, especially if he had found out that, you know, she had been meeting Joseph, because that would be such a kind of dishonorable thing to do. And this is the same man who, when Amina was 16, he brought her to Egypt to marry a man significantly older than her. I think he may have been in his 40s. And of course Amina said no, and he brought her back to America, but that's kind of where his head was at. So for him to think his daughter would marry or even be in love or in a relationship with an American boy, a 16-year-old boy, just, it's a no-no. Like, it's a no way, that's not happening. Which to a normal person is obviously completely insane. And it was kind of quoted quite a few times that Yasser was afraid that the girls were becoming Americanized. He didn't want them to be Americanized, you know, but it's like they live in America, you know, they have done basically their entire lives. So what, you know, it's unfair. Like, Amina had said that he can't expect to raise her like as an American in America, and then think it's going to be okay to bring her to Egypt to marry an Egyptian man with a completely different culture. But he didn't care about that, obviously. So you could imagine her fear if her father has those kind of, you know, principles or values that I guess he lives by and expects them to live by. And if she's breaking them, and how controlling that he is, threatening to kill her, she must have been terrified, absolutely terrified. The girls over the years had also made a number of complaints, which were actually brought to social services and the police, because they had accused Yasser on more than one occasion of sexual abuse.
These interactions Yasser videotaped with Sarah and Amina appear to have some troubling sexual overtones that obviously made his daughters squirm.
Wow, look at his eyes. If I put my eye on you.
I'm gonna get sick now.
So on all of these occasions where this happened, or where, you know, the girls had like left or ran away because he was either sexually abusing them or physically abusing them or psychologically abusing them, they would always end up coming back because Yasser, all of his family members, and the mum, Patricia, would continuously ring the girls, and get them to come back and say things like, oh, you know, your dad wants to make up with you, he's really sorry, please come back, blah, 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 blah. Anything basically to get them to come home. On one of these occasions where they left, Patricia and the two girls actually all left together. So I think it was quite rare for Patricia to actually leave as well.
You were afraid that Yasser would severely hurt Amina or Sarah.
I was scared that he would hurt all three of us. She called me at work and she said that she had to leave Yasser. She was crying, and that Yasser had threatened to kill the girls. And then she called me Christmas Day and said that she had left.
But she was complaining that basically throughout the whole marriage, still up until this point, she was getting abused by Yasser. So she was getting kicked and hit and all the rest of it. But she claims that the girls were never abused. Anyhow, they all left. They all went away. They were all hidden for a little while until, of course, Patricia contacted Yasser and got back with him. So she seems infatuated with Yasser. Don't ask me why, because he's incredibly abusive. And I don't know, there seems something different about Patricia. She doesn't strike me as someone who is genuine, I think. It's just hard to put my finger on it. There's just something not right with her. It's like she's void of something. It's strange. But whatever it was with Yasser, she was drawn to him. No matter what he did to her, the girls, she was drawn to him. So then Patricia convinced Sarah to come back home. Sarah eventually said okay. Patricia convinced Amina, or at least tried to, but Amina said flat out, no, I'm not going back, there's no way. But then Patricia incessantly called, text all the time, you know, went to her house, banging on her door, telling her to come, she has to come, her dad wants to make up with her.
So the girls willingly went back.
Yes.
Why the fuck you lying?
So she kind of felt, you know, she's 16, you would feel a lot of pressure that you have to go back there. So one of the last messages she sent to Joseph was her saying, I have to do what I have to do. And him pleading with her, please don't go back. He's, you know, he's crazy. He might kill you. But she went anyways. And it was the last time she went back because literally a mere few hours later, she was dead.
We have a cab in our cab stand. There are two people inside the cab. One of the people in the passenger seat looks like she's hunched over, and she has blood coming from her ear. She does not look like she's breathing. It doesn't look like they're alive to me.
Did you hear any shots or anything?
Nothing. We can't find the driver.
So Yasser had said to the girls that he was going to bring them out for dinner to have a chat, and that kind of like coaxed Amina almost to come back. So they jumped into his taxi. They were on the way to a restaurant, or so they thought, when suddenly Yasser pulled out a gun and shot them both at point blank range. Amina died instantly, but Sarah is the one you hear in the 911 call. Sarah is still alive briefly until you hear the shots again. And the really, really sad thing about that is the 911 operator does the worst job. Like, he literally has one job and he failed at it. You know, he doesn't ask her, oh God, he doesn't even ask her like what's happened, where they are. He puts her on hold for ages, and then he connects her to the fire service. Like, what? So that's, yeah, it's really frustrating to hear, and just like so tragic to think she rang 911 and that's the response she got. But anyway, and And then eventually the girls' bodies were found in this taxi, but Yasser had fled, so he was literally on the run now. Nobody knew where he was.
Police believe Yasser, after shooting his daughters, drove to the Omni Mandalay Hotel, ditched the cab, and then somehow disappeared.
Yasser vanished. How?
I don't know. I ask that question every day. How could a person that shot 2 people 11 times vanish? There is no way.
You've had no contact with Yasser Saeed since the murders?
No.
So a lot of people question Patricia's involvement in this murder because it all seems a little bit suspicious. Like she had asked to go to this meal, you know, for a chat, but Yasser told her no, she has to stay at home, even though she was the one that was so strongly pushing for them to come back because that's what Yasser wanted. It just doesn't seem, I don't know, I don't believe it. I think she knows way more than what she's letting on. She claims things like she'd never spoken to Yasser after the girls had got shot, and there's numerous phone calls on her phone record to prove this, but she lies about it. So again, why would you lie?
Why the fuck you lying?
So Yasser ended up being on the run for a very long time. He was on the run for 12 freaking years. And for 6 years of that, he was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
It's been nearly 13 years since police say Yasser Saeed killed his 17 and 18-year-old daughters, Sarah and Amina, on New Year's Day.
This man brutally murdered, shot to death, his 2 daughters in his taxi cab.
Wednesday, Irving police joined the FBI to announce that after thousands of tips and 6 years on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, Saeed had been captured in Justin, Texas in Denton County.
We have tirelessly followed every lead, never losing faith or hope that we would one day locate and arrest Yasser Saeed.
He nearly got caught at one point in Islam's house, so they were kind of harboring him there. But he actually escaped out a back window. I mean, you would think the FBI would have had surveillance around the back, you know? Like, oh, dang, he's got out the back. But anyway, they got him eventually, which is good, but it took them many years after that. And Islam, the son, was also arrested. So he was arrested for harboring a fugitive, essentially. And so was one of Islam's uncles or Yasser's brothers. So same thing. Yasser he's obviously been sentenced for life and he is eligible for the death penalty. Islam is going to do 10 years in prison and the uncle is going to do 10 to 12. And it just, I don't know, I just think it's so weird that in all of that, Islam, the son, fully supports the dad completely, and he actually no longer talks to the mum. He basically cut her off after the shooting and just talked kind of solely to the dad and communicated with the dad. So it's very odd, and I kind of get the feeling from talking or from listening to Patricia talk that if she had the chance to get back with Yasser, like boom, she would do it in literally a fucking heartbeat. So I'm glad he's been caught. I'm glad he is in jail and he might get the death sentence, who knows. But yeah, he is a piece of shit. And that is it, my wonderful YouTube people. I hope you enjoyed it. I've actually made that one quite kind of concise compared to how much details could have been in that. There's a lot more, you know, kind of meat on that story, but this video probably would have been like an hour or so otherwise. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it and I shall see you in the next one. Bye!